And now on FilmFest Live 2020, we go to KLEGGT, who is going to be giving us a quick demonstration of how shields work in Nerf from his workshop somewhere. We will join him now.
See, right here. It's a pre-recorded video I did earlier, so you don't have to worry about staring at my beautiful face for too long. And then if you have any questions at the end, I'll be going live again, so you can ask me. So sit back and enjoy my video.
Hey guys, KLEGGT here, and I'm going to be your Defense Against the Darts professor for the next 4 hours, or half an hour, whichever comes soonest, I guess. Today we'll be going over shields, what they are, how they're used in Nerf, their advantages and disadvantages, and at the end I'll give you a little slideshow of how I make shields and a few of the ones I've built in the past. First up, what is a shield? You may be surprised to learn, as I was, that shields actually predate Nerf by quite a few years. It used to be that people played tag games with stones, sticks, spears, that kind of thing. Until one guy said, actually, I don't quite like getting hit by sticks, I'm going to build something out of sticks to protect myself. And thus the shield was born, making a lot of people quite unhappy actually, because now they couldn't easily tag each other. So people moved on from slings and sticks and rocks up to swords, maces, halberds, axes, and to combat this, shields starting to develop their designs as well, up to the ones you're probably quite familiar with, such as the Roman shield, the hoplite shield, and generally just everything that's built out of wood and metal composites to give it more strength, to be able to deflect these weapons. Until the point where muskets were developed and then shields started to fall more out of favour. Not only did the invention of gunpowder and projectile weapons factor into the demise of the shield usage, but as knights started to wear heavy armour, it became the new form of defence rather than having to lug around a heavy metal shield, and it provided a fuller cover. With rifles becoming the common tool of war, people turn to other methods of defense such as body armor, tanks, and static emplacements for their defense. In modern day uses, there are still some shields knocking around. You'll often see them as part of SWAT teams for sieges, or riot officers will use shields as they're well equipped to deal with the type of hits that they'll be expecting, such as from bottles or bricks. So, why do we use them in Nerf? Well, in Nerf, the projectiles are a lot softer, so there's no concern over damage to your person or to the shield. Plus, the projectiles move a lot slower, so it gives you ample opportunity to block or to dodge out of the way, even against multiple opponents or with a high FPS blaster. Alright then, so part B of this presentation is why use a shield in Nerf, the pros. Shields offer you a lot of gameplay enhancing qualities, two of which I like to call aggressive use and defensive use. Now, traditionally, when you think of a shield, you automatically assume defensive, don't you? Because you'll be standing there and you're blocking stuff, so that's defensive. And in Nerf terms, this could be you defending your teammates, or blocking off a choke point, or just playing a game mode which relies on you defending an area where having a shield will keep you in that area for a lot longer. Now for this type of usage, you'll probably want a larger sized shield, either a shield that covers a lot of your person, or it could be a tower size shield. But basically you want to cover as much space as you can as your game allows. And I'll take this as a point to discuss that most game organizers will put a limit on shield sizes, as we don't want anything completely ridiculous like people turning up in mech suits or shields that cover 80% of the person. Because at that point it kind of takes the fun out of it for other people if there's zero chance of actually hitting someone. So now the other way of using a shield, which is my personal favourite, is aggressively, in which you use your shield as a tool to help you progress further in the game. An example of this would be if you're doing an attack the point game, you can use your shield to push out of cover and hopefully deflect the opponents and enable your teammates to follow suit and follow you into the point, with taking less risk of you getting tagged out. A nice shield can also give you an advantage against players with slower reloading blasters, such as single shots, as you're enabled to move further distance closer to them in the time it takes them to reload or prime their blaster, enabling you to get some shots off at them or get into closer cover. And for aggressive usage, you'll probably want a smaller size shield, such as a buckler, as it gives you more maneuverability, it doesn't weigh you down as much, and you're able to be more aggressive with it. As to whether aggressive or defensive playstyle is better, it depends on what game you're playing, it depends on you and your playstyle, and it's pretty flexible. I mean, you can do both in a game with any size shield really. There's no downside to using a smaller shield to defend, it would just be a bit more difficult, or a big shield to attack, it would just be a bit more cumbersome. Which brings us nicely onto my next point of talking. What are the downsides of using a shield? First of all, of course, is you've got this thing strapped to your arm, or held in your hand depending what kind of shield you have. And most likely you'll have a blaster that will at some point need reloading, so you have to think about how you're going to switch mags or front load your blaster, or having this thing dangling off your arm, which isn't always the easiest of things depending on how your shield is set up. Some game organisers will restrict what blasters you can use with a shield, which I think is fair to some degree, because a full auto pistol and a shield can be a very overpowered combination in the right hands. But on the same side, I don't think having only pistols is necessary. But then again, that's my personal opinion. Depending on what you make your shield out of, it could be quite a weight on your arm. I prefer to make them out of foam, which I'll show you later in my video. Some people use covered plastic or thin sheet wood, which is fine, but you have to take into account the weight of your shield when you're going to be playing. I will point out at this point that you have to think about what you're making your shield out of, because there's also the possibility of you accidentally knocking into people or bashing people. Obviously, do not use your shield for bashing on purpose, but accidents do happen, and you have to make sure that your shield is at least soft enough so it won't cause people any damage. And speaking of knocking into things, you have to take into account the size of your shield as well. If you're playing an indoors game, you have to think about doorways or fixtures and furnishings, as well as other people that you may accidentally knock into or get stuck on when playing with your shield. To give you a bit of a personal anecdote of why shield usage isn't the best thing in the world, my main shield, I've changed the handles and grip system on it a few times to try different things. One of them was a great system that is used in a lot of LARP shields. It was great to grip, felt great, but when I actually got to use it in a war, I found I couldn't reload my blaster at all. It was just got in the way of me holding the mags in my offhand, and it ended up not using the shield because it wouldn't allow me to use my blaster, which is the main point of Nerf. Well, that and looking super fabulous, of course. So in general, that's kind of like the good sides and the bad sides of a shield. It's not everything, but I'm going to move on to perhaps the most boring part of this roller coaster of a presentation, which is the effect of shield usage on Nerf games. Now, shield usage has been a point of contention here and there for a little while because some people find them not fun. Which, to a degree, I do understand, because you're essentially saying, in a tag game where the idea is to tag other people, you're saying, I'm going to use this thing to not get tagged, which can be unfair to some people, in their opinion. And as much as I like shields, I wouldn't like to turn up to a game where everybody had them, because then it muddies the game a lot and will really drag it out. But as far as I'm aware, there's been no problems with shield usage in the Nerf games, other than a few fringe cases where shields that are too big or maybe have a blaster integrated into them, which kind of goes against the spirit of the game, I think, even though they are ridiculously cool. At the end of the day, it's up to game organisers to feel what works best for their Nerf war and to make decisions based on that. Now, another downside of shields, which I picked up on earlier, is that they can slow the game down a bit. If you have, say, a building or you're playing indoors and you have choke points, a guy with a big shield in there or two guys with two big shields in there can really slow the game down, especially if you don't have any shield breakers, which I'll talk about in a sec. But if you have two people there who can cover a doorway, can cover a choke point, and you can't tag them out, it stalemates the game and makes it unfun for pretty much everybody. I can't imagine, even as a shield user, that being it too much fun to be standing in the doorway for the whole game. When taking hits from darts, it's a lot harder to tell what's hit you. If it's not hitting you, it's hitting your shield, which for the most part is not a problem because you'll probably hear normal hits. But if someone's using Mega and it's noisy, you might not always tell that you've been hit or that your shield's been broken. But this is a common problem in Nerf. Say if you're wearing too thick of clothing or baggy clothing, you won't always feel the hits. But that's natural for a tagging game, and it's up to the players to kind of work around that. And now we finally get to the part about using shields, which I like the most, which is it encourages the use of alternative ammo. Because I don't even like shields that much, what I really love is mega darts. Giving mega darts and rockets an additional use in that they can destroy or pierce shields adds more tactics and more flavour to the game, I feel. If there's one thing that Nerf is good at, is variety, and this encourages that. And running mega darts takes away that safety that players using shields expect. I've had players run at me aggressively using their shield, not realising I had a mega blaster, and a shield is a bigger target. It adds to the overall silhouette of players, so it's easier to hit. And they go to expect to block a half dart or a normal dart and end up getting pierced by the mega dart, taking them out. So in a way, it kind of adds more dynamic to play. Rockets still don't see a lot of use, even though they have the capability in most rule sets I've known to destroy shields for the game. Just because they're harder to hit, unless you have a good air setup, it's difficult to shoot a rocket, especially the Nerf branded ones, accurately and at a good distance. But they're still a lot of fun, and one of my favourite moments from last year's Battle of Nerf was me sticking my shield out in the doorway, being a bit silly with it, and someone actually hit it with a demolisher rocket, and they cheered because they destroyed the shield and they actually hit with a demolisher rocket. And it was worth it for me as well to hear the joy, to have that moment, because at the end of the day it's not about the winning, it's about having fun and making a good experience for everyone playing. That plus I had this whole Ork thing going on, and a blaster and a shield was the closest thing I could get to being quite orky, since melee is kind of not a big thing in UK Nerf, and I'm not going to get into that kettle of fish. I think that covers most of the basics of shield usage, what's a shield, how we use shield in Nerf games. Now I just want to go quickly over kind of briefly how I make a shield. Not saying that my way is good at all or the best way. It's all down to how you want to build a shield, but again, as I said earlier, you want to think about safety, you want to think about durability, and you want to think about how sweet it looks. Now, my preference is EVA foam sheets, which I generally get them bulk from eBay, but you can get them at B&Q for a higher premium if you prefer. They're basically just a huge sheet of foam, and you need a few of them. You'll also need some kind of adhesive. Most recommended is contact adhesive, but I use hot glue because I'm janky. You need some cutting implements, some knives, swords, axes, scissors. You'll need straps or some way of holding the shield. And then finally, you'll need some way to paint and decorate it. And I've tried several different types of paint: spray paint, emulsion, acrylics. My current favourite is flexi paint, which is what a lot of LARP shields use. It's more expensive than the other options, but the durability and finish is much better, I find. So you want to cut all the foam to size, you want to stick it together, get the straps through. I find the straps can tear the foam sheets if you're using foam, so put something in there to protect the foam. I use a plastic card sheet with the straps going through. Get it all stuck together, get the edges filled, and then do your paint on it. Finally, make sure it has a nice lacquer or clear coat over it to seal it in and protect it. My first shield I made, which is the main one I've used for about 2 years or more now, has had almost zero issues with durability. It's been left out in the rain, it's been bashed around the caves, it's taken all sorts of FPS darts to it, and it's still alive and kicking, although I'm going to replace it. Once you've got all this together, you've got a workable shield. Go out and have fun blocking darts with it, although not just yet. Before we reach our conclusion of this presentation, I just want to self-promote some of the shields I've made in the past, so you guys can see what's possible. Because you don't always have to go with something historic looking or something plain. So this first one's a zombie shield. As you can see, it's got the zombie design on it. Super zombie there. Woo. This one is known as the Berserker. You can see it looks like a bear. It's got his little tongue thing hanging out there. It's got some teeth and eyes like a real bear. But it's a shield. This is the first shield I ever made, and it was my shield for the last few years. I'm going to rebuild it using the new materials and experience I've gained making shields over the last 2 years, so it'll be better and more durable. This is my most recent shield that I made. Simple wood pattern with some metal bars on it. People seem to like the wood pattern, so that's mostly what I do now. But this is the first shield I fully completed using the flexi paints and the new strap design, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm actually gonna go ahead and make all my shields in this manner going forward. And then here's some other shields, blah 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 blah, that I've made in previous months and times. Some of them not as durable. It's my experimentation phase, using different materials. They're not all as durable as I'd like, but it was a learning process, and some of them don't look too bad. So to conclude then, shields are pretty cool. They add something additional to Nerf games. You require some thought into how they're used, and they can be fun if used responsibly. I seem to have found my niche in being an advocate for shield usage, just to up the mega meta. But
Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that. Before we go on to the questions, I've been asked to tell you that Joel will be cutting his hair at 6:45, quarter to 7. So be sure to tune in for that and watch him cut his hair off. So I've got the chat open. Anybody got any questions about shields before I go? And while I wait for questions to pour in, I'm going to pop up this lovely Foam Fest shield, which again is going into the raffle. So if you're not already donated, make sure you make a donation to the good cause. You'll be in the chance to win this Foam Fest shield. Biggest I would go for a shield. Personally, I like 18-inch bucklers, personally, for my own usage. But for a game, I'd say anything bigger than 3 foot in each direction is probably pushing the limits of what's acceptable. Just for moving on. My favourite shield is my Ork shield. Sadly, it's at the end of its life, so I'm going to rebuild it in the new style of shields. Yep, EVA foam is the right thing in the chat. Let's see. Type of lacquer. You can use clear coat. I've used before. If you spray paint a shield, you can use typical Halford's clear lacquer. For flexi paint, they do a special coating that goes over it that takes away the stickiness, makes it nice and sealed. Dual shields, yeah, I mean, you could do it for fun. Yeah, I don't know how you'd want to tag people though, because a lot of games don't allow melee hits, even with items. I wouldn't advise going for 2 shields, but you could do it for fun. Body armor. The thing is about armor is that you would need specific rules for that, so that you can like how you take it. So you take it the same as a shield, only get pierced by megas, and it's an arms race thing again, because you're going to end up with everybody turning up for full covered suits and normal darts not being any use, and you don't want to have no use for darts, normal darts, I think. Have I ever made a riot shield? No. The biggest I've made, I think I've made a 20-inch round shield. That's the biggest shield I've made. I was working on a large tower shield size one, but it's a lot more effort, and I felt like I didn't want to use a huge shield in games, so that's been put on the afterburner. Did I make the mask? No, it's just a LARP goblin mask. EVA affected by spray paint? No, I have spray painted shields before. The problem is EVA foam will absorb the spray paint, so you want to cover it with some kind of coating. Some people use PVA glue to seal the foam before you spray paint it, and also you'll use a lot of can to spray paint a shield because they're large and because they absorb some of the paint. Yeah, so anything else? Anybody wants to ask? I've got a few minutes left, so otherwise I'm just going to continue to stare at you guys. Yeah, PVA glue, you can mix it with a bit of water to thin it down. In that case, I'd probably do 2 coats, a thinner one, and then a thicker one to cover it. But how many handle types have you tried? I think it must be about 5 different ways of putting the straps through, either a static strap or a strap you can with a pull tie on it, or I had a handle with a strap going across the arm, and they work well in different ways, but it depends on what feels good for you. How do you protect paint from coming off flexible foam? Use flexible paint is what I would suggest. Like I said in my video, the flexi paint stuff is what a lot of LARP stuff uses for their shields and weapons. It dries really nicely, and it's flexible, and it can absorb impact without cracking the paint. That's the problem we had with the emulsion type paints I tried, and some of the acrylics, is that you can see the dart impacts on the shield after coated and stuff. So I moved away from that. Spray paint's nice and flexible; it won't crack, and the flexi paint, like I said, is nice and durable. Cyanoacrylate base glue? I don't know. I haven't tried that glue. Haven't really heard of it, so I wouldn't know if it'd eat the foam. But hot glue works fine. Hot glue is nice and cheap and works fine. But if you want something a bit more professionally done, then I would use contact adhesive. Do you think you should allow shields to be put on your back or floors cover? I'd say no. You have to hold it in your hand to be used. That's generally how most rule sets work. And yep, I'd say yeah. So that's pretty much what I have to say in terms of shields. You're more than welcome to follow me on Insta or Facebook if you have any further questions or want to ask me anything about shields. I'll probably be doing the shields a lot more now that the weather's getting better. Probably try and do some really strange designs to see how far I can push shield making, basically. For some reason, it's the thing I do. Mostly to get those megas out and play. Because I mostly run mega now. Just to hunt shields while I use a shield. It's kind of sick, but that's how I do. Thanks for the shout out, Hellfire, to my Facebook.